Hello, hello, hello. How are you, wonderful people? I have missed you. I know I just saw you like 2 days ago, but you know what? I am happy to see you again. So, today we have got to talk about boundaries. And I know that we have talked about boundaries before. And guess what? We will probably talk about boundaries again because they are that important. And the thing that I want to get out first and foremost is that the power of boundaries is not in the setting of them, but it is in the keeping them, right? Enforcing them. Because we can have all the intention in the world to set these great boundaries, but if we are unable to enforce them, or let's be real, unwilling to enforce them, people are going to continue to step over them, right? That would be our bosses, our colleagues, like crappy people on the street that we meet or whatever, even our kids and our family. I know it's hard to think about, but yeah, even our kids and our family, if we don't make it clear the importance of those boundaries. So today we are going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to do just that, to set them and enforce them with author and success coach Lisa Hammond. And we're also going to talk about how to avoid the burnout that is fueled when we don't protect our time and attention and the dreams that we have for our future, which in essence is what those boundaries are supposed to protect. So, welcome back to the Impact in Action conversation series, where we talk with leaders and entrepreneurs about mindset shifts and tactical approaches to help you put your impact in action. So I am Marianne Lombardi. I am your host, your friend, your colleague, your person on the screen who talks to you and who misses you when you're not here. I am the founder and CEO of Marianne Lombardi Coaching, and I work with women and non-binary entrepreneurs, helping them ditch that work-life balance lie so that they can build a business that is in alignment with the life that they choose to live. So without further ado, I want to bring Lisa on in here to help us with this conversation. Lisa, how are you?
Fantastic. How
Oh
are
my
you,
God, I'm
Marianne?
so happy. I'm doing all right. My dad is in town today, which like
Good.
always makes me happy because he's just wicked fun.
That's
So
awesome. I love it.
I know.
Love
So
it.
my first question for you is, are you good at setting boundaries for yourself?
I am now. I didn't used to be.
Mm,
No, so if you're familiar with positive intelligence at all, there's different saboteurs that come into play. Mine are hyperachiever and a pleaser.
mm,
And actually, and an avoider. That's another one. But the pleaser wants to keep things even keel and does not like toxicity or negativity, which bides very well to what we're going to be talking about today.
yeah.
But as a pleaser, because we want to not rock the boat, you may have found yourself in the past committing to things that you really should not have because you didn't either want to hurt somebody's feelings, which you probably wouldn't have in the first place, but you have this mindset that you might, or people would be disappointed in you
Hmm.
and we want to be liked.
Yeah,
So,
don't we want to be liked?
yes.
Oh man, we really want to be liked. Can
Mhm.
you introduce us to who you are and your work and how you got interested in boundaries and burnout and all of the wonderful things that you work with your clients on?
Absolutely. So, as you can see, I'm Lisa Hammett, and I spent 26 years in the corporate retailing sector. And I became the burnt out, stressed, unhealthy person who is now my target audience, I should say. I had been through it and fortunately was able to move past it to a happy, fulfilled life. But I'll tell you, it is a journey. And when I left the corporate world, I started my health and wellness journey, losing 65 pounds, and started health coaching for a large global company part time. And I still do that very part time. But during the pandemic, I added on the life coaching piece of it because, as we know, weight gain or being unhealthy is really a byproduct of a bigger problem. And now I love that I can really help clients get to the root cause of what is driving that behavior. So
Yeah.
that's me.
Yeah, I can imagine that this concept of boundaries comes up a lot in the work that you're doing with clients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, there could be people like myself who have a hard time or had a hard time, I should say, saying no, or just in the workplace, if they are the achiever, hyper vigilant mentality where they have to be perfect all the time and they have to just take on everything. That's totally unrealistic. You can't do that. And you end up working yourself to death. And when you set that expectation to the people that you work with, they're going to be accessible to you 24/7 because they think that, oh gosh, they're willing to put in all those extra hours. So why not call them, at 10:30 at night or,
Yeah. Those expectations are a bitch, right?
oh,
Because
totally.
once you set them, they're very hard to reset. That being said,
Exactly.
they can be reset.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, how do you work with your clients to help them understand what boundaries to actually set, right? Because I feel like we just sort of blanketly put out there, okay, set boundaries, do it. But I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of work on the back end to recognize what it is that boundary is there to protect because it's drawing a line in front of something or a circle around something that is protecting it, right? But you need to know what you're protecting,
Mhm.
what that boundary does. So I'm curious what that experience is like for you and how you help clients understand that.
That's such a good point. Somebody once told me, and I don't remember if it was a friend or a fellow coach, but they said, when you say yes to something, you're actually saying no to something else. And is that what you're indirectly saying no to more important? And that really stuck with me. I'm like, what are you inadvertently saying no to by saying yes? And I know it's kind of a backwards way of looking at it, but it really kind of puts things in perspective. So when I work with clients, obviously I ask a lot of questions as to tell me, about your life. What percentage would you say that you spend with work, with your family, doing things that you love? And it's very clear just by asking that question, obviously, what is out of balance, but really starting to understand their behavior and why they do things the way they do. And then starting to ask those questions, like I just kind of posed in
Mm.
a statement as opposed to a question. Are there things by always saying yes and being willing to do things, are you indirectly not enabling your time to devote to the things that you really truly care about?
Yeah, it's almost like this cost benefit analysis of the choice, right? Because
Absolutely.
there's the choice whether it is, accepting and doing work at 10 o'clock at night because an email or a text comes in. What is the gain of that and what is the cost of that? And how do those things align up? Because often we tend, to your point, don't think about both, like
Mhm.
both polars of those two things. We just think, oh, well, I have to because it gets me X, Y, and Z. Well, okay, it may, but by continuing to do this, this is what you lose. This is the cost of that action.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And people don't think that. We're so polarized in so many different ways. And we just don't think about really how our actions or even our thoughts per se are driving our behavior.
Yeah. Well, and I can imagine the compounding effect of that is what
Mhm.
gets us to these stress
Yes.
situations, the physical and mental and emotional sort of toxicity in ourselves, right? As well as that burnout place, right? Like it's this continuum up to that burnout spot. What is it
Exactly.
about burnout that you centered on as being an important topic to explore?
Because I went through burnout and I can state without any qualms, it is the worst possible place that you can be in, both physically and emotionally. And when you get to that point, you often make a decision that is desperate and it's not necessarily fully thought through because you cannot stand one more day in your present situation. So, you might quickly get divorced. I'm not saying that might not be a good avenue at some point, but you might jump into the decision, or you might just quickly quit a job without really thinking, do I have the financial means to be able to supplement until I find another job? It's those type of life altering decisions that we really have to plan. And, some people say, well, I can't plan for the unexpected, or I can't. Sure, you can. You can be prepared on how you react to difficult situations. And preparedness in this situation is learning how to manage your stress so it doesn't get to burnout. And that's my optimal goal, is to help people before they actually get to burnout, so that we don't have to go through a deeper recovery, so that we're able to work together on managing the stress and to plan an appropriate exit strategy if they want to leave a relationship or leave a job. Okay, if it's job related, then all right, is there a transition plan, or do you want to start your own business? Well, what is that going to take? What kind of capital is that going to take? Do you just need to transition into another company that's more aligned with your values? I mean, there's so many different things that can be
Yeah.
taken into account, but it's really thoughtfully thinking through what you're going to be doing if you just make a snap decision, and then what needs to be taken into account to really make the transition. It's still not going to be easy necessarily, but doable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And a couple things come up listening to you talk about that, is that when you are at that burnout stage, when you are at that heightened stress stage, it's really hard to see the options,
Mhm,
right? It just feels like there's only one thing to do, and that is to burn it down, and whatever that it is.
mhm,
So, and at that stage, it seems like it's so much harder to pull you back into a place of comfort, calm, ease, whatever the thing is, stability, whatever that kind of like base is for you, that core. So I can imagine if you get clients who are already in that burnout stage, it's a whole other process of pulling them back, as opposed to finding folks who are either in the middle. This is what I call singed, right? Which they haven't gotten to
mhm,
burnout yet, but they may be starting to feel a little hot, a little singed, or who are just trying to make sure they have really good habits so that they don't
mhm.
even get singed or burnt out. How often do you see people in that continuum?
Oh, unfortunately, since COVID, they're almost at burnout.
Mm,
You know, people, what I have discovered, have to have such a pain point that they have to feel compelled to make a decision. And I'll use just weight as an example. You know, you might not be happy with your weight, but you just tolerate it. You're not really willing to make the steps, or take the steps, or develop the habits to kind of transition through that and be successful. But if you get a wake up call from your doctor, or in my case, what really compelled me is I saw a picture of myself in a newspaper article, and I was horrified at my appearance. And I knew I was overweight. I knew I didn't feel well. But when I actually saw that person, I'm like, I don't even recognize that person. I don't recognize them at all. And that was that pain point that I'm like, I have to do something now. So if somebody isn't quite at the desperate stage, really getting them to start thinking about, okay, if you're to do nothing, whatever it may be that you're trying to accomplish, if you absolutely do nothing within the next 6 months to a year, what's your life going to look like?
yeah.
And that really will put things in perspective for a lot of people, and they're like, "Oh, crap. Yeah, no, nothing."
Yeah.
So
Well, what's interesting about that too is the power of self-reflection and the power of understanding yourself, right? And I think that this journey around boundaries is also a great opportunity to figure out like what you will and will not take, what you can and cannot handle, what you should and should not have to do. And that requires you to understand yourself a little bit and to think about it, to, our earlier part of the conversation, to say, well, what the person that I want to be, or the person that I am, requires me to actually know my kid's favorite toy.
mhm,
And to know my kid's favorite toy, then I actually need to be around when it's at bedtime in
mhm,
order to experience what toy they grab when it comes time for comfort, and
Mhm.
so it's like thinking through those scenarios and those things, giving it a real thing to protect, right? The real cost of not having that boundary is not knowing the toy that your kid loves at nighttime. So
Mhm.
I think I had a point and I lost it, but I think my point was that I can imagine that the self-reflection of knowing what's important to you is a big key to this idea of helping people really stave off that burnout and really enforce those boundaries. It's like, no, this is why it's important to me.
Absolutely. And you did it beautifully with the story that you just kind of shared, that you tied it to an emotion.
Mm,
How are you going to feel missing out on that important moment with your child? Your child is only going to be this age once. Are you going to miss out on this opportunity because you're too busy with work or whatever that situation may be? So it's tying it to emotion, because when we tie it to emotion, we really can feel it and we become invested in it. And
yeah.
that is when things really start to change.
Right. So when it comes to the enforcement of those boundaries, like we've talked a lot about setting them, enforcing them is a real conundrum for folks, right? And
Yes.
I'm wondering how you help talk that through with people, or
Mhm.
maybe provide scripts, or what's the journey that your client has for learning how to enforce them?
That's a great question. First and foremost, like if it's health related, mentally, emotionally, whatever it is, you got to schedule it. And again, I'm just going to say health related because a lot of people care about their health. If self care tends to go out the window, if you're nearing burnout or you're stressed and you're working all the time, your personal care goes out the window. And I don't mean necessarily taking a shower per se, although that could be the case, God forbid, but it's more about scheduling time that you can relax and do things that you enjoy. And I'm not saying just exit from a situation for days on end or hours on end. Maybe it's like stepping outside, having regular, consistent 10-minute breaks. It could be something like that. But the big thing is scheduling. You have to schedule whatever is most important to you, because if it's not on your calendar, and most often in your phone with an alarm to remind you, it's not a priority. So that needs to be really first and foremost. And if it's, work related, then again, it's tying into that emotion that we were discussing. And by saying yes to something that you really shouldn't be, what's your stress load going to be like? Are you going to be as productive? And are you going to be as accurate as you need to be? Inadvertently, by saying yes because you're afraid that, oh, you don't look like a team player if you say no, if it hurts your productivity and the quality of your work, it was the absolute worst decision that you could do. So
Mhm.
only you can make that decision. And then it's learning how to have those conversations with people to set that boundary and to explain to them why you are doing it. Just not saying no, especially in the workforce. No, I can't do that. No, because I have a very full plate. I know how important this is to be on time and accurate, and I really am concerned that I can deliver the way I need to. So, and then propose a solution
Yeah, that's
because
so good. That's so good because you gave him a
Mhm,
script, right? It's so interesting to me how powerful the scripts are, because sometimes we help. I know at least this comes up with clients for me all the time, and a lot of it's like quick things where people will email me or text me and be like, "Oh my God, this just happened. What should I say?" And that's such a great script to give people, because in the moment of the stress of trying to enforce my boundary, I need to figure out how to feel strong and confident in what I'm saying. that's such a great that's such a great script for them. I love that.
thank you. Yeah, again, it's putting it in such a way so that it's really for the benefit of the other person. When in actuality, it's really helping you probably more, but you're presenting it in such a way that they understand the value and how they could be impacted by you doing the wrong thing.
Yeah. Well, and I know that you have a book. Don't you have a book on this subject too? The subject
I
of
do.
preventing burnout, and
I
tell us a little
do.
bit about it.
Yes. So it just got published.
Woo!
And yes, I'm excited. It's called From Burnout to Best Life. And it integrates my story of reaching burnout and how I moved past it. But it's really kind of a holistic health and wellness journey, starting with if you were almost at burnout, you pretty much stopped dreaming. You're in that siloed, ugh, dead zone. I like to say that the world is kind of gray, devoid of color, and you don't have the mental capacity to really dream again and really to create the right vision for your life. So it's how do you go back and create that vision? How do you create that why? How do you create the goals that stick, not just the goals that you wish to do? How do
Mm,
you form those sustainable habits that are sustainable? And then it goes into, what you're fueling your body with and how you move your body. So it's really a total holistic approach to your health, happiness, and fulfillment. And
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 go ahead. Finish.
No, I was just going to say that there, at the end of each chapter, there are reflection questions.
Mm.
And when people purchase the book, they can get a free downloadable workbook that'll actually help them as well,
Oh,
to
that's
kind of work
brilliant.
through some of the things. But yeah, so that's the book.
Yeah, I think the first thing you said is when you hit that point of burnout, you feel this ugh. And I think that we need to just I think everybody can understand what that ugh is,
Mhm.
right? I think that should be an official like descriptor of what burnout is along with the stress and the mental and physical and emotional impacts and the ugh should be in there too. So,
Yeah, it's a really good descriptive word.
oh
Ugh,
yeah. I felt immediately when you said that I was like, "Oh my god, yeah. Ugh."
I know. It's
So,
almost like coughing up a hairball. Not a
yeah.
pretty experience.
No, it's not a pretty experience.
No.
So, as we wrap things up, can you give the folks who are either watching live or the replay one thing that they could do to help them with their boundary setting and enforcing experience?
Yes. So I think it would go back to kind of what I had shared before as far as setting a boundary is you need to schedule it. You first need to figure out what it is. If it is something that you wish to start doing, if it's a healthy habit or whatever, you need to figure out a realistic amount of time that is doable for you, and you need to schedule it and put an alarm on your phone to make it happen, because if it's not scheduled, it's not going to happen. And you
Mm.
need to make it really doable. So, if trying to find balance in your life has been really difficult and you want to start implementing 5-minute breaks, okay, then start with 1 or 2 days. Don't say, well, I could do that every day of the week. Of course, you physically could. But if you're not in the habit of doing that, you're not going to do it. It doesn't matter how easy it really is. You have to make it so almost stupid simple so that you can build traction and then have that success, which builds momentum and confidence so that, oh, I can do this. So then I can start expanding upon that.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. I've been struggling to build a meditation habit, which I'm
Mm,
failing at tremendously. And I think part of my problem was like, you know what? I'm going to get up every morning. I'm going to 10 minutes and do my meditation before I start my, like, no, I have not been able to do that. But once or twice a week at night, much easier to manage. And I feel much
right.
better, right? I don't feel like a failure at meditating, right? And I'm like, oh, look at that.
Exactly.
I did 2 times at night and it feels a little better and sort of getting momentum. And so you're
Mhm.
absolutely right. I think it does make a difference.
It does. And and this is just a helpful tip in regards to habit formation. Sometimes when we're trying to start that behavior, attach it to something that you're already doing. So if you had said, you know what, I want to do it first thing in the morning. And are you a coffee or a tea drinker? Either.
Yes. Tea.
Tea. Okay. So let's say when you wake up in the morning, I'm just guessing, having a cup of tea is of the utmost importance. So maybe you get up right away and that's the first thing you do. So, setting an alarm or putting a note by your teacup or on your desk, if you automatically take your cup of tea and go to your desk or your favorite chair, have a note or something by there that says, okay, I'm going to meditate for 10 minutes. Pick 1 or 2 days, like you said, but attach it to that habit of what you're already doing, because that is just going to further instill that habit and make it a lot easier to
Yeah,
remember.
this is great advice, Lisa. How do people find you?
So the easiest way to find me is they can go to my website, which is really hard, lisahammett.com. And you can
Woohoo!
see my name on the screen. So it's really, really difficult. So that's the best way. And they could send me a message. All my information's on there. So
Oh, that's
probably the best way.
fantastic. And we'll make sure we put a link to your website and to the book in the show notes and on the different platforms here. So I
Awesome.
appreciate you so much, Lisa, for spending a little time with us.
Thank you. I've loved it. It's great. I felt like, oh gosh, we could have just talked for an hour.
You know, this is one of those kind of subjects.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely.
absolutely. So thank you so much, Lisa, and we'll see you again soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thank
All right.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.